My son Derek stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised, and asked loud enough for everyone to hear, "How does it feel to be useless, Mom?" The room went silent. Paige's family stared. He laughed, that cruel laugh I'd heard too many times lately. I set down my fork, looked him straight in the eye, and said calmly, "It feels great, actually. Especially now that I just stopped paying your rent." His face went white. Paige choked on her water and screamed, "Rent? What rent?" The moment those words left my mouth, everything changed. Thanksgiving dinner at Harold and Linda's beautiful colonial home in suburban Connecticut became a war zone. Turkey and stuffing sat forgotten on fine china, as 20 pairs of eyes swung between Derek and me. Paige pushed back from the table so hard her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "Derek, what is she talking about?" Her voice climbed higher with each word. "What rent?" My son's face cycled through emotions faster than I could track them. Shock, panic, anger. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried to laugh it off. "Mom's confused. She gave us a little help once or twice when we first moved in, that's all. She's making it sound like something it wasn't." I stayed perfectly calm. My hands weren't even shaking anymore. Something had broken in me when he asked that question in front of all these people. When he'd tried to humiliate me for sport. For weeks now, I'd been swallowing his little digs, his dismissive comments, the way he'd started treating me like I was an inconvenience. But this was different. "Derek, honey, don't lie to me right now." Paige's voice carried a warning I'd never heard before. She turned to me. "Aubrey, please, what are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone. My fingers found the banking app without hesitation. I'd looked at these numbers so many times, trying to understand how I'd let it go this far. "Would you like to see the receipts, Paige? 2 years of monthly transfers, $1,800, every single month. That's $38,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Harold, Paige's father, set down his wine glass with a sharp clink. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Paige's sister Brooke let out a low whistle. 38,000? Harold's voice was granite. He'd built his insurance business from nothing, and he'd always valued self-sufficiency above almost everything else. "Derek, is this true?" "It was temporary," Derek stammered. "We were going to pay her back. It was just until I got the promotion." "What promotion?" Paige's voice cracked. "You got your promotion 8 months ago. You said we could finally afford the apartment because of your raise." I watched my son scramble. It was painful, like watching someone drown. But I couldn't save him this time. I'd been saving him his whole life, and look where it had gotten us. "The raise wasn't as big as I thought," he said weakly. "I didn't want to worry you. Show me the transfers, Aubrey." Harold's businessman voice left no room for argument. "Please." I handed him my phone. He scrolled through the banking history, his jaw tightening with each swipe. Linda leaned over to look, and I watched the color drain from her face. They'd been so proud when Derek and Paige got that luxury apartment in downtown Hartford. They'd bragged about it to everyone at their church, telling people how successful their son-in-law was. "There's more," I said quietly. I wasn't trying to destroy Derek, but if we were doing this, if he'd pushed us to this point, then the truth needed to come out. All of it. The car payments. I've been covering those too. $450 a month for the past 2 years. And the insurance. Another $200. Paige sank back into her chair. Her hand moved to her belly, where she carried my first grandchild. I'd only learned she was pregnant 3 hours ago, right before dinner. She was 3 months along. Derek had waited to tell me, and now I understood why. He'd been building distance between us for months, making it easier to cut me out completely once the baby came. "That's another 15,000, Harold said flatly. He handed my phone back to me. "Is that everything?" "No." Derek's voice was bitter. "Tell them about the business loan, Mom. Tell them how you insisted on giving me money for my business idea." "You mean the $15,000 you asked for? The loan that was supposed to launch your consulting firm?" I kept my voice steady. "The business that never happened? That 15,000? Brooke laughed. sharp and mean. A kept man. My sister married a kept man. Shut up, Brooke, Paige snapped, but there were tears streaming down her face. Derek, please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me you haven't been lying to me for 2 years. Derek stood up so fast his chair tipped backward and crashed to the floor. Every person in that room flinched. I can't believe you're doing this, he snarled at me. His face twisted into something ugly, something I barely recognized. You offered that money. You begged me to take it. You said you wanted to help, that it would make you feel useful. And now, you're weaponizing it? Using it to humiliate me in front of my wife's family? You asked me how it felt to be useless, I said softly. In front of all these people, you thought it was funny. Because you are useless. The words exploded out of him. You're a lonely old woman living in Dad's house, working part-time at a library, with nothing else in your life except bothering me. I did you a favor by letting you help. It gave you purpose. And this is how you repay me? Linda gasped. Harold stood up, his face red. That's enough, Derek. You don't speak to your mother that way. Not in my house. Why? She's been controlling my life for years, using money to manipulate me, to keep me dependent on her. I'm 32 years old, and she still treats me like I'm 12. Well, I'm done. You hear me, Mom? I'm done with you. He grabbed Paige's arm. She was sobbing now, confused and overwhelmed. Derek, wait. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. She's a manipulative liar who can't stand that I have my own life now, that I have you and a baby coming. She's trying to ruin this for us. He pulled Paige toward the door. We're leaving. Derek James Harrison, Harold's voice boomed. You sit back down and face this like a man. But Derek was already shoving Paige's coat at her, grabbing his keys from the entry table. Paige looked back at me, her face streaked with tears and mascara, confusion and hurt written across every feature. Then Derek pulled her out the door, and it slammed shut behind them. The silence that filled Harold and Linda's dining room was suffocating. 20 people who'd been celebrating Thanksgiving together suddenly couldn't look at each other. I could feel their eyes on me, their judgment, their pity, their shock. I'm sorry, I whispered. I shouldn't have said anything. I should have kept it private. No. Harold's voice was firm. He walked over and put his hand on my shoulder. You had every right to defend yourself. What he said to you was inexcusable. What he's been doing is inexcusable. But even as he said it, I saw something in his eyes. Doubt. Exhaustion. The look of someone who doesn't want to get involved in messy family drama. And I understood, in that moment, that I was alone in this. Whatever came next, I'd be facing it by myself. The first call came 3 days after Thanksgiving. My sister Diane, who lived in Florida and who I spoke to maybe once a month, called at 7 in the morning. Aubrey, what's going on with you and Derek? Her voice was tight with concern, but there was something else underneath it. Judgment, maybe. He called me last night. He's very upset. I was making coffee in my quiet kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made breakfast for Derek every morning when he was growing up. The same kitchen where Stephen and I had laughed and argued and made plans. The same kitchen that now felt too big and too empty. I'm sure he is, I said carefully. Did he tell you what happened? He said you've been trying to control his life. That you forced money on him and then humiliated him publicly when he tried to set boundaries with you. Aubrey, is that true? The coffee maker gurgled. Outside my window, my neighbor was putting up Christmas lights, even though it wasn't even December yet. Normal life, continuing on while mine fell apart. That's not exactly how it happened, Diane. He was crying. My sister's voice sharpened. Your son called me in tears, Aubrey. He says you're trying to keep him dependent on you because you're lonely after Stephen died. He says you can't let go. Something cold settled in my chest. Derek had always been good at spinning stories, at making himself the victim. Even as a child, when he'd break something or hurt someone, he'd find a way to make it seem like an accident, like someone else's fault, like he was the one who'd been wronged. Diane, he mocked me in front of 20 people. He asked me how it felt to be useless. When I told him I'd stopped paying his rent, his wife found out I'd been supporting them for 2 years. She had no idea. Well, maybe that's because it was a private arrangement between mother and son. Maybe airing it out like that was cruel, Aubrey. Did you think about that? I closed my eyes. Diane and I had never been close. After our mother died 5 years ago, the distance between us had only grown. She'd been hurt that Mom left me the china and the jewelry, even though I was the one who'd driven 3 hours every weekend to take care of her during the cancer. Old resentments had a way of festering. I need to go, Diane. My coffee's getting cold. He also said you've been harassing him. Calling constantly, texting at all hours, trying to force him to talk to you. He says he's scared for Paige and the baby. My hand froze on the coffee pot. What? That's not true. I've called him twice since Thanksgiving. Both times I left a message asking if we could talk. That's all. That's not what he told me. Diane's voice had that sanctimonious tone I remembered from childhood when she'd tattled on me to our parents. He says you're obsessed with controlling him. And honestly, Aubrey, maybe you should think about therapy. Grief does strange things to people. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in my kitchen, phone in hand, trying to understand what had just happened. Derek wasn't just defending himself. He was launching a campaign. He was rewriting history, painting me as unstable, as controlling, as dangerous. Over the next week, I got 6 more calls. Friends from church who'd heard concerning things about my mental state. A woman from my book club who gently suggested I might want to talk to someone professional. My hairdresser, of all people, who asked if everything was okay at home. Derek had been busy. He'd called everyone he could think of, everyone in my small social circle, and told them his version of events. And his version made me sound like a monster. I tried to defend myself at first. I explained what had really happened. But I could hear the doubt in people's voices. They'd known Derek since he was a baby. They remembered him as a charming, helpful young man. It was easier to believe I was having some kind of breakdown after losing Stephen than to believe Derek was lying. Then I saw the social media post. I didn't use Facebook much, but my friend Dorothy sent me a screenshot. Derek had posted in a parenting group, no names mentioned, but the details were clear enough. How do you deal with a parent who uses money to manipulate you? I'm about to become a father, and I'm trying to break free from toxic patterns, but my mother can't seem to let go. She publicly humiliated me in front of my in-laws because I'm setting healthy boundaries. Now she's calling constantly, showing up at my apartment, and I'm genuinely worried about what she might do. Any advice on protecting my family while still being compassionate to someone who's clearly struggling? The comments were full of sympathy for him, suggestions to get a restraining order, warnings that enmeshed parents could be dangerous, recommendations for therapists who specialized in family trauma. I felt sick. This wasn't just damage control. This was character assassination. Dorothy called me that afternoon. Aubrey, you need to see what he's doing. He's telling everyone you're stalking him. I've barely contacted him, I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears, like I was underwater. I called twice. I sent one text apologizing for bringing up the money publicly. That's all. I know, honey. But he's creating a narrative, and people are believing him. I decided to try one more time to reach Derek directly. I sent him a text, carefully worded, asking if we could please sit down together, maybe with a family counselor, to talk things through. I told him I loved him. I told him I was sorry for my part in our conflict. I told him I wanted to be part of his and Paige's life, part of my grandchild's life. His response came 2 hours later. Stop contacting me. Any further communication will be considered harassment. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had turned into this nightmare. Stephen had been dead for 3 years. The grief had gotten easier, but the loneliness hadn't. Derek was all I had left, and now he was systematically destroying my reputation to justify cutting me out of his life. The doorbell rang at 9 the next morning. 2 police officers stood on my porch, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Harrison? Aubrey Harrison? Yes? We need to ask you some questions about your contact with your son, Derek Harrison. He's filed a report claiming you've been harassing him. He's requesting a restraining order. My legs went weak. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. I've called him twice, that's all. Can we come in, ma'am? They were polite, professional. They asked about my relationship with Derek, about the Thanksgiving incident, about my attempts to contact him. I showed them my phone records, 2 calls, 1 text message. They took notes, told me Derek's request for a restraining order would likely be denied, but advised me to stop all contact with him for now. Even if you're right, ma'am, and this is being blown out of proportion, sometimes the best thing to do is give people space. Let things cool down. After they left, I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. This was what Derek wanted. Complete isolation, no contact at all, and he'd figured out exactly how to achieve it by threatening me with legal consequences if I so much as called him. I thought about that baby girl Paige was carrying, my granddaughter. Would I ever meet her? Or would Derek succeed in erasing me from their lives completely? That's when I realized the truth. There was no fixing this by being nice. There was no amount of apologizing or explaining that would work. Derek didn't want reconciliation. He wanted control. And he was willing to destroy me to keep it. Patrick Murphy had been Stephen's lawyer, helping us with our wills and estate planning years ago. He was in his 50s, kind-eyed, with silver hair and a calm demeanor that made you feel like everything would be okay. When I called his office, desperate and scared, he fit me in that same afternoon. "Tell me everything," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. His office overlooked Main Street in our small Connecticut town, the same street where I'd walk Derek to elementary school every morning. I told him. All of it. The money, the Thanksgiving dinner, the police visit, the systematic campaign Derek was waging against my reputation. Patrick listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "The restraining order request is garbage. I can tell you that right now. 2 phone calls and 1 text don't constitute harassment, especially from a mother to her adult son after a family conflict. Any judge will see through that." Relief washed over me. "So I can contact him?" "No." Patrick held up a hand. "Just because it won't be granted doesn't mean you should give him ammunition. My advice? Complete radio silence. Don't call, don't text, don't email. Nothing. Let him make the next move. But the baby is coming in 6 months. I can't just... I know it's hard, Aubrey, but sometimes the smartest strategy is patience." He flipped through his notes. "Now, about the money. You said you gave him approximately $60,000 over 2 years. Do you have any loan agreements? Any paperwork where he acknowledged this was money to be repaid?" My stomach sank. "No. It was family. I trusted him." Patrick nodded slowly. "Then legally, those were gifts. You can't force him to repay them. Family court generally views financial help from parent to adult child as voluntary support unless there's explicit documentation otherwise. So he just gets to keep it? After everything he's done? Unfortunately, yes. I'm sorry, Aubrey. The law doesn't care about hurt feelings or broken trust. Without a contract, you don't have a case for repayment. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't cry in Patrick's office. I'd done enough crying at home, alone, where no one could see. What do I do now? You move forward. You focus on your life. You let Derek face the consequences of his actions without your support for the first time. And you protect yourself legally and financially. Make sure your will is updated. Make sure Derek isn't listed as a beneficiary on any accounts or insurance policies if you don't want him to be. Lock down your finances. I nodded numbly. Patrick walked me through some paperwork, helped me update my beneficiaries on my life insurance and retirement accounts. It felt brutal, removing Derek's name from documents. But Patrick was right. I needed to protect myself. For 2 weeks after that meeting, I tried to follow Patrick's advice. I went to work at the library, shelving books and helping patrons find what they needed. I joined Dorothy for lunch every Thursday. I went to my book club and pretended everything was fine. I tried to rebuild some kind of normal life. It was hard not to think about the baby. Not to wonder if it was a boy or a girl, if Paige was feeling okay, if they'd picked out names. But I stayed silent. I didn't reach out. Then, 3 weeks before Christmas, Patrick called me. "Aubrey, I need you to come to my office. Today, if possible." Something in his voice made my blood run cold. "What happened?" "Derek has filed a lawsuit against you. I've been served on your behalf." I drove to his office in a fog. A lawsuit? What could he possibly be suing me for? Patrick handed me the legal documents when I arrived. My hands shook as I read through the dense legal language. But the core claim was clear enough. Derek was suing me for $120,000. He claimed I'd defrauded him. His argument, as laid out in 16 pages of legal jargon, was that I'd promised him the $60,000 as an advance on his inheritance, that I'd verbally agreed my house, paid off and worth approximately $300,000, would be his when I died, that I'd positioned the financial help as an investment in his future, in his family, and now, according to the lawsuit, I was reneging on these promises. I was refusing to give him additional money he'd been counting on. I was causing him emotional distress and financial hardship. He was suing for double the money I'd given him, plus damages. "This is insane," I whispered. "I never promised him the house. I never said the money was an advance on anything. It was just help, just a mother helping her son." "I know," Patrick said gently, "and we'll argue that. But Aubrey, you need to understand something. Even if this lawsuit is complete nonsense, even if we get it dismissed, defending yourself is going to cost money. Legal fees add up fast. We're looking at thousands of dollars just to fight this." "How much?" $5,000 to $10,000 at minimum. Could be more if it drags out. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I don't have that kind of money just lying around. I've already spent $60,000 on Derek. My savings are depleted. I know. And that's exactly what Derek's counting on. Patrick's expression was grim. "This is a common tactic. File a lawsuit you know is weak, but expensive to defend against. Force the other party to settle just to avoid legal fees. It's legal extortion. So what do? We fight it, and we hope the judge sees through it quickly. But Aubrey, you need to prepare yourself. Even if you win, you lose money. That's the trap Derek set." I sat in Patrick's office for a long time after that, staring at the lawsuit papers, trying to understand how my son had become this person. The boy I'd raised, the child I'd read bedtime stories to, the teenager I'd helped with homework and driven to soccer practice, and supported through every challenge. That boy had turned into a man who would use the legal system to financially destroy his own mother. "There's one more thing," Patrick said quietly. "The lawsuit is public record. Anyone can access it. Derek's going to use this to further his narrative that you're the problem. He'll tell people you're refusing to honor your promises to him, that you're being selfish with money that should be his." I closed my eyes. Of course he would. This wasn't just about money. This was about power. This was about making me pay for daring to stand up to him at that Thanksgiving dinner. "Fight it," I told Patrick. "I don't care what it costs. I won't let him do this." But even as I said the words, I felt something inside me crumbling. How long could I keep fighting? How much more could I endure? The lawsuit became public knowledge within days. In a small town like ours, gossip spreads faster than wildfire. I could feel people's eyes on me at the grocery store, at church, at the post office. Whispers followed me everywhere. My sister Diane called again. "Aubrey, this is getting out of hand. Can't you just give Derek what he wants? Is it really worth destroying your family over money?" "He wants my house, Diane. The house Stephen and I bought together, where we raised Derek, where all my memories are. And he wants $120,000 I don't have. So sell the house, downsize. You don't need all that space anyway." I hung up on her. I'd never done that before, but I couldn't listen to another word. Even my own sister thought I should surrender everything to make this go away. Harold, Paige's father, called me a week into December. His voice was tired. Aubrey, I want you to know I believe you about what happened at Thanksgiving. Linda and I both do. But this legal fight is tearing Paige apart. She's stressed, and stress isn't good for the baby. I know, I said quietly. I never wanted any of this. I know you didn't. But maybe it's time to think about settlement. Patrick tells me Derek might take $20,000 and drop the suit. That's a third of what you gave him. It's not fair, but it might be worth it for peace. And access to my grandchild? There was a long silence. I can't promise that, Aubrey. Derek's very angry, very hurt. He feels betrayed. He feels betrayed? My voice rose despite myself. Harold, he's been lying to everyone for 2 years. He's been committing fraud, possibly, with those transfers. He's trying to take my home. And he feels betrayed? I'm just telling you what I see. Look, I'm not taking sides in this. I'm just trying to help find a solution that works for everyone. After he hung up, I realized what he'd really been saying. He didn't want to be involved. Paige was his daughter, Derek was his son-in-law, and they had a baby coming. Getting entangled in our legal battle wasn't in his interest, so he was stepping back, staying neutral, hoping it would all blow over. I was truly alone now. Through Patrick, I made Derek an offer. $20,000 if he dropped the lawsuit and agreed to family therapy after the baby was born. It was painful, giving him more money after everything. But I wanted peace. I wanted a chance to know my granddaughter. Derek's response came through his lawyer 3 days later. He rejected the settlement. His counteroffer made my blood run cold. $50,000 in cash. The house transferred into his name, with a clause allowing me to live there for 5 years before I had to move out. And a written apology from me, posted on my Facebook page and his, admitting I'd been manipulative and controlling, apologizing for trying to use money to dominate his life. If I refused, he'd not only continue the lawsuit but would increase his demands. And he made one thing crystal clear. I would never meet my grandchild. Not at the hospital, not at their home, not anywhere. He would make sure of it. I showed Patrick the counteroffer. He read it and shook his head in disgust. He's trying to take everything from you. Your money, your home, your dignity, and your family. What do I do? That's up to you, Aubrey. But if you accept this, you're setting a precedent. You're telling Derek he can threaten and manipulate you into anything. You'd have nothing left. I went home that night and sat in Stephen's old recliner, the one I'd never gotten rid of. I thought about my husband, about how he would have handled this. Stephen had been kind, but firm. He'd loved Derek fiercely, but he'd also held him accountable. If Stephen were alive, would Derek have turned out this way? The call came at 11 at night. It was Harold, his voice shaking. Aubrey, Paige is at the hospital. She went into labor. It's too early. She's only 7 months along. My heart stopped. Is she okay? Is the baby okay? They're doing everything they can. It's early labor, probably brought on by stress. They're trying to stop it, but if they can't, the baby will need intensive care. I'm coming. Aubrey, Derek said you're not allowed. He's told the hospital staff. I'm sorry. I just thought you should know. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Harold, that's my grandchild. Paige is the mother of my grandchild. I have a right to be there. I know, but legally, Derek can restrict visitors, and he has. I'm sorry, Aubrey. I really am. After we hung up, I got dressed anyway. I drove to the hospital, my heart pounding, praying for Paige and that tiny baby. When I got to the maternity ward, a nurse stopped me at the desk. I'm here for Paige Harrison. I'm her mother-in-law. The nurse checked her computer, then looked at me with sympathy. I'm sorry, ma'am. Mr. Harrison has left instructions that you're not to be admitted. Only immediate family. I am immediate family. That's my grandchild in there. I understand, but legally, the father has the right to restrict visitors. I can't let you through. I stood in that hospital corridor for 3 hours. I couldn't leave. Couldn't bear to go home not knowing what was happening. Finally, Harold came out, looking exhausted. They stopped the labor. Paige is on bed rest now. The baby's okay, still cooking. They want to keep her pregnant as long as possible. Thank God, I whispered. Tears streamed down my face. What did they have? Do they know? A girl. They're going to name her Ella. A granddaughter. I had a granddaughter who I might never meet. Derek blames you, Harold said quietly. He says the stress of the lawsuit caused this. He's telling everyone you nearly killed his baby. I felt something break inside me then. Some last piece of hope, some final thread of connection to my son. He was willing to blame me for a premature labor caused by his own actions, his own lies, his own cruelty. I need to go, I told Harold. I drove home in the dark, through streets decorated with Christmas lights, past houses filled with families preparing for the holidays. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table and made a decision. I was going to give Derek the $50,000. I couldn't fight anymore. I couldn't risk never meeting Ella. I would give him the money, accept the humiliation, lose my savings, and pray it would be enough to earn a place in my grandchild's life. I called Patrick the next morning and told him to draw up the settlement papers. He argued with me, told me I was making a mistake, but I was so tired, so very tired. I transferred the $50,000 from my retirement account 2 days later. It was nearly everything I had left after the legal fees and Derek's previous extractions. My nest egg, gone. My security, gone. But I told myself it was worth it for Ella. Derek's lawyer confirmed receipt of the funds. The lawsuit would be dropped within a week, pending some final paperwork. I waited for Derek to reach out, to acknowledge the payment, to tell me when I could visit Paige and see ultrasound pictures of Ella. Instead, 3 days after the money cleared, Patrick called. Aubrey, I don't know how to tell you this. Derek hasn't dropped the lawsuit. His lawyer filed an amended complaint. They're saying the $50,000 proves you had the money all along, that you were withholding his rightful inheritance. They've increased the demand to $200,000. They want the house. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The room spun around me. He cashed your check and then turned it against you, Patrick said, his voice filled with anger and sorrow. I'm so sorry, Aubrey. I've never seen anything like this. That night, Dorothy came over after work. She found me sitting in the dark, unable to move, unable to cry, unable to feel anything except a vast emptiness. Aubrey, honey, you need to see something. She pulled out her phone, her hands shaking. I know you don't want to look, but you have to. You need to know what he's really doing. She showed me screenshots from a closed Facebook group for young fathers. Derek had posted there, thinking it was private. But Dorothy's son was in the group too, and he'd seen the posts. This is too easy, Derek had written. My manipulative mother is so desperate to see the baby she'll give me everything. I just keep asking for more and she keeps caving. Then I'll decide if she gets access or not. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, I win. She should have thought about consequences before she tried to humiliate me. Another post from a week earlier. My mother has this big house she doesn't need. If I play this right, I can force her to sign it over. She's already given me $50,000 just for dropping a lawsuit I never intended to pursue. Can't believe how easy it is to guilt someone when they're desperate. I stared at those words. Read them again. And again. My son wasn't trying to rebuild our relationship. He wasn't hurt or betrayed or struggling with boundaries. He was playing a game, and the prize was destroying me financially and emotionally while enjoying every minute of it. He'd been planning this all along. The lawsuit was never real. The settlement offers were designed to bleed me dry. Every move had been calculated to extract maximum pain and maximum money, and I'd played right into his hands. Dorothy held me while I finally broke down. Sobs tore through me, all the grief and betrayal and loss I'd been holding back for weeks. When I could finally speak again, my voice was hoarse. I gave him everything. I tried everything, and he's been laughing at me the whole time. I know, honey. I know. There's nothing left, Dorothy. I don't have $200,000. Even if I sell the house, After the mortgage payoff and sale costs, I might clear $250. He'll take it all. I'll have nothing. Dorothy pulled back and looked at me hard. So don't give it to him. Fight. I can't win. I've already lost. Then make sure he doesn't win either. Aubrey, you're letting him destroy you because you're still trying to be the good mother, the understanding parent. But he's not your little boy anymore. He's a con artist. And the only way to beat a con artist is to stop playing their game. She was right. I'd been playing Derek's game by his rules, and he'd been winning because those rules were designed to destroy me. It was time to change the game. I spent the next day at Patrick's office, going through every document, every text message, every email, every bank record. We built a timeline of Derek's deception. It was all there, laid out in black and white. The lies, the manipulation, the calculated cruelty. These social media posts change everything, Patrick said. His anger had cooled into something more dangerous, professional determination. He's admitted to fraud, to extortion, to never intending to honor settlement agreements. This is evidence of bad faith. We can use this. To do what? To file a countersuit. Fraud. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. We can demand return of the $50,000 obtained under false pretenses. We can request sanctions against his lawyer for filing frivolous claims. We can make his life very difficult. Will it work? I don't know. But we can try. The question is, do you want to? Because once we file this, there's no going back. This becomes all-out war. I thought about Ella, the granddaughter I'd never met. If I fought back, Derek would never let me near her. I'd lose any chance of a relationship with my only grandchild. But I'd already lost that, hadn't I? Derek had never intended to let me meet her. All his promises, all his implied negotiations, they'd all been lies. He was going to take my money and shut me out anyway. At least if I fought back, I'd maintain some dignity. File it, I told Patrick. All of it. We spent 2 weeks building the case. Dorothy helped me document everything. We printed out Derek's social media posts, got affidavits from people who'd witnessed his behavior, compiled bank records showing his spending patterns. What we found made me sick. The $50,000 I'd given him in the settlement? Gone in 3 weeks. Not on rent or necessities or baby supplies. On a new motorcycle. On a weekend trip to Boston. On expensive dinners and designer clothes. On things he wanted, not things he needed. The business he'd claimed to start with? My $15,000? We found no business registration, no tax filings, no website, no business bank account, nothing. The money had gone to his personal account and disappeared into his lifestyle. Patrick also subpoenaed Derek's financial records for the lawsuit. What they revealed was damning. Derek had been living well beyond his means for years. He'd maxed out credit cards in Paige's name without her knowledge. He'd taken out a car loan using inflated income figures. He'd been one step ahead of debt collectors by using my money to make minimum payments. He's been running a shell game, Patrick explained. Using your money to cover debts from overspending, then overspending more because he knew you'd bail him out. It's a classic pattern. We filed the countersuit on a Tuesday morning. The complaint was 30 pages long, meticulously documented, damning in its detail. We sued for return of the $50,000 obtained by fraud, demanded dismissal of Derek's suit with prejudice, requested legal fees, and asked for restraining orders preventing Derek from further harassment. I knew Derek would retaliate. I just didn't know how fast it would happen. That afternoon, Harold called. His voice was cold. Aubrey, Paige is extremely upset. She just found out about your countersuit. The stress triggered contractions again. She's back in the hospital. My stomach dropped. Harold, I didn't want to hurt Paige. But Derek left me no choice. He's been defrauding me. Paige doesn't care about your legal battle. She cares about her baby. And right now, that baby is at risk because you two can't stop fighting. This isn't my fault. Derek has been lying to everyone. About everything. The money, the business, the credit cards he opened in Paige's name. Did she know about those? Did she know he's been committing identity theft? Silence. Then, quietly, What are you talking about? Check her credit report, Harold. Derek's been opening accounts in her name. She's probably got debt she doesn't even know about. Harold hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, wondering if I'd just made everything worse, or if I'd finally given Paige information she needed. That night, Derek called me for the first time in 6 weeks. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. You're trying to destroy me, he hissed. No greeting, no pretense, just raw hatred. That countersuit is a joke. Those Facebook posts don't prove anything. And you've just guaranteed you'll never, ever see your granddaughter. I'll move to California if I have to. You'll die alone, never knowing Ella, and it'll be your own fault. Derek, please. Let's stop this. Let's both drop the lawsuits and try to heal. He laughed, bitter and sharp. Heal? You humiliated me at Thanksgiving. You turned my wife's family against me. You're trying to take back money you gave me freely. You're the problem, Mom. You've always been the problem. Dad knew it too. He just never had the guts to say it. Bringing Stephen into this broke something in me. Your father loved you more than anything in the world, and he'd be ashamed of what you've become. At least he's not here to see what you've become. A bitter old woman trying to buy love and then punishing people when they don't perform for you. He hung up. I sat in the silence of my house, his words echoing. Was that really how he saw me? Had I somehow contributed to this by helping too much? By not setting boundaries earlier? No. I stopped that line of thinking. Derek was responsible for Derek's choices. I'd made mistakes as a parent, sure. Every parent does. But I hadn't turned him into a liar and a con artist. He'd chosen that path himself. The next morning brought worse news. Patrick called with an edge in his voice. Derek's filing for full legal custody of Ella with a restraining order against Paige having any contact with you. He's claiming you're a danger to the child, that you've threatened the family, that you're mentally unstable. He can't do that. Paige is the mother. He's arguing she's under your influence, that she's not thinking clearly, that for the baby's safety, she shouldn't be around you. That's insane. I know. But Aubrey, there's more. Paige filed for divorce this morning, and she requested an emergency custody evaluation because she found out about the credit card fraud. She's discovered Derek's been systematically destroying her credit and hiding debt. She's furious. My heart lurched. Is she okay? Is the baby okay? She's stable. 32 weeks now. If she can make it another few weeks, Ella will be okay. He paused. Harold wants to talk to you. He has information. Harold called 5 minutes later. His voice was strained but no longer cold. Aubrey, I owe you an apology. We looked into what you said. Paige's credit is ruined. Derek opened 4 cards in her name, maxed them all out. $43,000 in debt she knew nothing about, plus a personal loan for $20,000. I closed my eyes. I'm so sorry, Harold. We're hiring Paige a lawyer. A good one. She's leaving him. But there's something else you should know. Paige found more of Derek's social media posts. Not just the ones about manipulating you. Posts about her too. Talking about how easy she is to control. How her family's money will come to him someday. How getting her pregnant locked her in. My hands started shaking. He wrote that about his own wife? It gets worse. He's been having an affair. Some woman from his office. Paige found messages on his phone. He told this woman he was planning to divorce Paige after the baby came, take custody, and use your house money to start fresh with her. The room tilted. All of this, everything Derek had done to me, had been part of a larger plan. I wasn't the only victim. Paige was too. And even baby Ella was just a pawn in Derek's schemes. Harold, I need Paige to know something. I never meant for any of this to hurt her or the baby. If I'd known how far Derek would go, I would have handled it differently. She knows, Aubrey. She wants to talk to you. Not about legal stuff, just as family. Would that be okay? Yes. Please, yes. That afternoon, Paige called from the hospital. Her voice was thick with tears. Aubrey, I'm so sorry. For believing him. For not seeing it sooner. You tried to warn me and I didn't listen. You loved him. That's not wrong, Paige. He used my family. He used you. He used me and our baby. What kind of person does that? I don't know, honey. I really don't know. We talked for an hour. Not about lawsuits or money, just about life, about her fears for Ella, about how to rebuild after betrayal, about what came next. When we hung up, something had shifted. I wasn't alone anymore. Paige knew the truth. Harold knew the truth. The walls Derek had built around me were crumbling. But I also knew Derek wasn't done. Cornered and exposed, he'd be more dangerous than ever. The next week felt like preparing for battle. Patrick worked 18-hour days building our case. Harold hired a private investigator to document Derek's affair and spending patterns. Paige's lawyer subpoenaed financial records. The picture that emerged was worse than any of us imagined. Derek wasn't just irresponsible with money. He'd been running actual scams. The business I'd funded with $15,000? He'd created fake invoices, fake contracts, fake business plans. He'd shown them to 3 other people and gotten investments from them too. $35,000 more, all gone into his pocket. This is wire fraud, Patrick said grimly. He could face criminal charges if these people file complaints. Dorothy spent hours digging through social media, finding every post, every comment, every piece of evidence showing Derek's real character. She found posts from years ago where he'd bragged about manipulating teachers into better grades, scamming his way into a better job, lying on resumes. A pattern emerged. Derek had been doing this his whole adult life, and I'd been enabling it by cleaning up his messes. The woman Derek was having an affair with, Angela, contacted Paige directly. She'd seen the divorce filing and wanted to tell her side. According to Angela, Derek had told her he was separated, that his marriage was over, that his rich mother was helping him get set up in a new apartment. He showed me bank statements, Angela wrote in an email. Transfers from an account he said was his trust fund. I had no idea he was stealing from his mother and lying to his wife. I'm disgusted. I ended it as soon as I found out the truth. Even Derek's lies had lies underneath them. He'd constructed an entire false reality where he was the victim, the good guy, the one being wronged by everyone around him. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of Derek's co-workers, a man named Greg, reached out to Patrick's office. He'd seen the lawsuit in the public records and had information. Derek's been embezzling from our company, Greg told us in a formal statement. Small amounts, here and there, padding expense reports. I reported it to HR 2 months ago. They were investigating quietly, building a case. He's going to be fired, and they're considering criminal charges. Everything was unraveling for Derek at once. His marriage, his job, his schemes, his reputation, all the lies were collapsing under their own weight. Patrick filed a motion for summary judgment in Derek's lawsuit against me, arguing it was frivolous and filed in bad faith. He attached all our evidence, the social media posts, the spending records, the witness statements, the proof of fraud. The judge will see this within a week, Patrick said. If our motion succeeds, Derek's suit gets thrown out and he has to pay your legal fees. Plus, we can pursue our countersuit for the return of your money. What are the chances? Good. Really good. Judges don't like people who abuse the legal system. And Derek's made it very easy to prove he's been doing exactly that. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. But mostly, I just felt sad. Sad for the little boy Derek had been, full of potential. Sad for the man he'd become. Sad for all the pain he'd caused and all the bridges he'd burned. That night, I got a call from Paige. Aubrey, I'm 34 weeks now. They think I'm going to make it to term, or close enough. Ella's going to be okay. Thank God. I want you there when she's born. In the delivery room if you want. You're her grandmother. You deserve to meet her. Tears streamed down my face. I'd love that. Thank you, Paige. And Aubrey? My lawyer talked to Derek's lawyer. Derek's trying to negotiate now. He knows he's going to lose everything. His job is gone. His case against you is falling apart. The divorce is going through. He's desperate. What does he want? To drop everything. All the lawsuits, All the claims. Walk away clean, with no criminal charges filed. In exchange, he'll give up any claim to your money or house. He'll accept supervised visitation with Ella only. It was everything I'd wanted months ago. Complete surrender from Derek. No more legal battles. But I felt no joy in it. What do you think I should do? I asked Paige. I think you should talk to Patrick and do what's best for you. But Aubrey? I also think Derek needs to face real consequences for once in his life. If you let him walk away, he'll just do this to someone else. She was right. If I accepted Derek's surrender now, he'd learn that he could lie and cheat and steal and manipulate, and when caught, just walk away. No accountability. No justice. I need to think about it, I told her. I spent that night thinking about Stephen, about the man he'd been and the father he'd been. He'd loved Derek so much, but he'd also believed in consequences, in taking responsibility, in being honest, even when it cost you. What would Stephen want me to do? The answer came in the morning, clear and simple. Stephen would want justice. Not revenge, not cruelty, but justice. Derek needed to face what he'd done. I called Patrick. Reject the surrender. We're going to court, all the way. Are you sure? I'm sure. If Derek wants mercy, he can start by telling the truth and making real amends, not trying to negotiate his way out of consequences. Patrick's voice was warm with approval. Okay then, let's finish this. The court date arrived on a cold January morning. I wore the navy suit Stephen had always liked, the one I'd worn to his funeral 3 years earlier. It felt appropriate somehow, full circle. Patrick had prepared me for what would happen. Derek's lawsuit would be heard first. Then, our countersuit. The judge, a woman named Sandra Martinez, with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, would review all the evidence and make her decision. Derek sat across the courtroom with his lawyer. He looked terrible. Thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes, his expensive clothes rumpled. When our eyes met, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Good. He should be afraid. The hearing took 3 hours. Patrick presented our case methodically. The bank records showing Derek's lies about financial hardship. The social media posts proving premeditation and fraud. The witness statements from Angela, from Greg, from people Derek had scammed. The evidence of identity theft against Paige. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that the social media posts were taken out of context, that Derek had been emotionally distressed when he wrote them. But Judge Martinez wasn't buying it. Mr. Harrison, she said, looking at Derek over her reading glasses, you've presented this court with a claim that your mother defrauded you by reneging on promises of financial support. But the evidence shows you've been systematically defrauding multiple people, including your own wife. You've used the legal system to harass and extort your mother. You've lied under oath in your filings. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Derek stood. His voice was small. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I was hurt and angry. I didn't handle things well. Didn't handle things well? Judge Martinez's voice was sharp. Mr. Harrison, you committed fraud. You opened credit accounts in your wife's name without her knowledge. You lied to obtain money under false pretenses. You filed a lawsuit you knew to be baseless. These aren't mistakes. These are crimes. She ruled from the bench. Derek's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning he could never refile it. He was ordered to pay my legal fees, which had climbed to $32,000. She granted our countersuit in full, ordering Derek to return the $50,000 he'd obtained through fraud. Furthermore, Judge Martinez continued, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution. Mr. Harrison, you're very lucky your mother is a kind woman. If she weren't, you'd already be facing criminal charges. Derek's face went white. His lawyer looked defeated. But the judge wasn't done. I'm also ordering that you have no contact with Mrs. Aubrey Harrison except through attorneys. You will not harass her, threaten her, or speak about her publicly. Any violation will result in contempt charges. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Derek whispered. We left the courtroom in silence. Patrick squeezed my shoulder. You won, Aubrey. Completely. But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like everyone had lost. Derek had destroyed himself. I'd lost a son. Even the victory tasted like ash. Paige went into labor 2 weeks later. She called me at 3 a.m, her voice tight with pain and fear. Aubrey, it's time. Can you come? I drove to the hospital, my heart pounding. Harold and Linda met me in the waiting room. Linda hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up, she whispered. Thank you for showing Paige what real strength looks like. Ella Rose Harrison was born at 6:47 a.m, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. When the nurse placed her in my arms, I felt something break open in my chest. All the pain and anger and grief of the past months melted away. Hello, sweet girl, I whispered. I'm your grandma. I'm so glad to finally meet you. Ella opened her eyes and looked at me. Dark blue eyes, still unfocused but searching. I felt tears stream down my face. This was what mattered. Not the money, not the lawsuits, not Derek's betrayal. This perfect, innocent life. Paige watched from the bed, exhausted but smiling. She looks like you, Aubrey. Around the eyes. She's perfect. You did so well. Over the next few weeks, I helped Paige however I could. I brought meals, did laundry, held Ella while Paige slept. We didn't talk about Derek much. The divorce was proceeding. He'd lost his job and was working at a retail store, paying back the money he owed in court-ordered monthly installments. I'd heard through Dorothy that he'd moved in with a friend, that his affair with Angela had ended badly, that he was isolated and struggling. Part of me felt sad for him. He was still my son after all, but I couldn't fix this for him. He had to face it himself. One evening, as I rocked Ella to sleep, Paige said something that struck deep. You know what I realized? You loved Derek so much that you kept saving him from his own choices. And that wasn't actually love. That was enabling. Real love would have let him fail earlier, let him learn. She was right. I'd confused unconditional love with unconditional tolerance. I'd thought being a good mother meant always rescuing Derek, always giving him another chance, always believing his promises. But that had taught him he never had to face consequences. It had made him weaker, not stronger. I'm sorry, I told Paige. I should have set boundaries years ago. Maybe if I had, none of this would have happened. Maybe. Or maybe Derek would have found other people to manipulate. Either way, you can't blame yourself for his choices. The money situation resolved itself slowly. Derek paid back what he could, $100 a month from his retail job. It would take years, but at least it was something. The other people he'd defrauded filed complaints, and the district attorney decided to prosecute. Derek took a plea deal. 5 years probation, restitution, community service, and mandatory counseling. I never pressed for more. Justice had been served. Derek was facing consequences. That was enough. My relationship with Paige grew strong and genuine. She was a wonderful mother, fierce and protective. Ella thrived. Harold and Linda welcomed me completely into their family. Sunday dinners at their house became a tradition. Derek asked to see me once, 6 months after Ella was born. We met at a coffee shop, Patrick present as a witness per the court order. Derek looked different, humbler, tired. I'm in therapy, he said. Court-ordered, but I'm actually trying, and I'm starting to understand what I did. To you, to Paige, to everyone. That's good, Derek. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I hurt you. I looked at my son, this broken man who'd caused so much pain. I felt something I hadn't expected. Compassion. Not trust. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But compassion. I appreciate you saying that. I hope the therapy helps. I hope you find a better path. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you give up? You could have just walked away. Let me take everything. Why did you fight? I thought about that carefully. Because love without boundaries isn't love, Derek. It's enabling. And boundaries mean sometimes you have to let people face the consequences of their actions, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. I fought because it was the most loving thing I could do for both of us. He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. I think I understand. We haven't rebuilt our relationship. Maybe someday we will. Maybe we won't. Derek sees Ella twice a month, supervised visits arranged through the courts. He's polite to me when our paths cross, but we're not close. Maybe we never will be again. But I have peace. Real, genuine peace. I have Paige and Ella. I have Harold and Linda and Dorothy. I have my home, my dignity, my boundaries. I learned that being useful isn't about letting people use you. It's about knowing your worth and sharing it with people who treasure it. Sometimes I sit in my rocking chair, the same one where I rocked Derek as a baby, now rocking Ella. The afternoon sun streams through the windows, warm and golden. Ella grabs my finger with her tiny hand, and I sing her the same lullabies I sang to her father. I lost a lot in this journey. Money, illusions, a relationship with my son. But I gained something far more valuable. I gained myself back, my strength, my boundaries, my understanding of what real love actually means. The other day, Ella smiled at me for the first time. A real smile, not just gas. My heart exploded with joy. Paige took a picture of us together and posted it on social media with the caption, Ella and Grandma Aubrey, the strongest woman I know. That's when I knew. Everything I'd fought for, everything I'd lost and grieved and struggled through, it was worth it for this moment, for this peace, for this love that's real and healthy and mutual. Derek taught me a hard lesson. The hardest lesson of my life, maybe. But I'm grateful for it, in a strange way. Because it showed me who I really am. Not the doormat I'd become. Not the enabler. Not the woman who confused love with surrender. I'm Aubrey Harrison. I'm 67 years old. I'm a mother who set boundaries. A grandmother who fought for her family. A woman who learned, finally, that the most loving thing you can do is let people face the truth of their own actions. And sitting here with Ella sleeping in my arms, Paige humming in the kitchen, sunlight warming my face, I feel something I haven't felt in years. I feel useful, truly useful, because I'm giving my love to people who treasure it, and that makes all the difference. Now, I'd like to ask you something. Have you ever had to set painful boundaries with someone you love? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? It's one of the hardest decisions we face as human beings. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps others who might need to hear this message find it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. There are more stories to come, more lessons learned through pain and perseverance. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling with a difficult family member. Someone who's being manipulated. Someone who needs to know that setting boundaries is an act of love, not cruelty. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you find the strength to set boundaries where you need them, to stand up for yourself when necessary, and to never, ever confuse love with letting people hurt you. Take care of yourselves, and remember, being useful means knowing your worth. Never forget that.